Hey guys, it's Troy, and I have kind of an eclectic pen mail, can't say day, but days, plural, and this is what I just recently ended up with. That and this one other here that has been my pen of the day today, and I'll talk to you more about that as well. But these are my new acquisitions for my collection, and I can tell you that from here all the way down were gifted to me by a friend of mine, and I'll tell you a little bit about these pens here. This is the one that just showed up in the mail today, and I got this one off from Etsy, etsy.com. Occasionally I'll find a good bargain there, and I was searching for some vintage pens. This particular pen, if you look, has got the Girl Scouts of America logo on it, which is the only reason really I bought this particular pen, because other than that, other than the logo being an official Girl Scout pen, I had no real desire for it. You see, some girl had etched her initials in it, JH there, and again on the barrel there. So JH, whoever she was, well, this was your pen. This particular pen, though, is a little interesting because one of the things about it is, well, to me, I already had an official Cub Scouts of America pen here in my collection, an old lever filler, probably from the 1940s, that was in excellent, excellent condition. Well, this particular one, obviously a little more beat up, and I got for a decent price. I figured, what the heck? And I do believe it's a different manufacturer, but this particular pen is the Stratford Pen Company. Stratford is actually the Saul's Pen Company that started in 1918, but, you know, the latter part of the 1930s, they changed their name to Stratford for some reason. I guess they felt it was a better name for them. I don't know, I guess for marketing purposes, and they had several sub-brands. If you see antique pens that have Peter Pan on them, well, that was a Saul's, if that tells you anything. So I figured I'd go ahead and pick this one up, not really knowing what kind of great condition it would be in. When I saw the nib, even in the pictures, I said, it's probably going to be fairly mediocre. My understanding is that some of the pens that were acquired and manufactured through Stratford had actually also had parts that came from Wherever. And I'm not a big fan of Wherever brand from the 50s, 40s, up through the 60s. I'm just not a fan. The more I've purchased them, the more I've had them, the less of a fan I've been. So, but anyway, this one, I have not touched it really, other than to fill it, because surprisingly, it was in usable condition. I was not expecting that. So you pull it off, and you've got that sort of semi-hooded nib to it at the end. I've seen Imperial pens that look exactly like that, some Wherevers as well. So this is a little different, though, in that it is an aerometric filler. It's not a lever filler. And considering that the Stratford Pen Company lasted up through the early 1950s or so, I would put this probably in the 1940s to early 50s. But you can see, let's see, to fill, insert, point into ink, press bar. So that's typical of that you're going to find on an aerometric filler. Basically, you have a bar, you have an ink sac. That sac is still very old, but it was also very pliable. And you can see right there, it's from Stratford. So I left that cage on it, and I tried the ink sac, and it did indeed work just a little bit. So I figured, why not? So there's another vintage pen that's in my collection, and it will join my Cub Scout pen. I was involved in Cub Scouts for a long time, was also a den leader for a while myself when I had children. So once great institutions, I say that, once great institutions, I figured, why not? I'd go ahead and pick those up. This is a brand new entry into the fountain pen market, just came out not too long ago, the Platinum Prefounte. Prefounte. I have done a video on that, as a matter of fact. Here is my Platinum Prefounte, and it is in a blue Well, this one came to me in red, and it has a fine nib on it as opposed to the medium nib. So you look here on the back, you got the 03F, which is a fine nib, the 05M medium nib. So this is what I had purchased for myself, and this came in a care package from my friend Larry, and I went ahead and put the cartridge in there and inked it up so I can actually compare how the fine writes compared to the medium. And I'll write with both here in just a little bit to give you a sample so you can get an idea. Here's one he also sent me that was really kind of neat, the Super5. Super5 is a German company, and I had read that they actually had pens that could be, I'm assuming with a different point on it or a different section that would come with it, that could be either a fountain pen or a rollerball. This one happens to be rollerball, and this is how it came to me. The difference is it had an empty ink cartridge in it. Okay, fine. So this is actually a rollerball that takes standard international cartridges. So let's go ahead and open it up. So you've got one in the pipe right there that I inked it up with a fresh ink cartridge, and it is big enough to keep your spare. So I went ahead and put a spare in there just for your purposes, because quite honestly, not for mine, because I have ink cartridges right here at my desk. I'd actually thought this would be really cool to be able to eyedropper it, because it's clear, it's all plastic. But then you look down here, you see that hole? That's a hole that goes all the way through and serves as an ink window in that section, and it is higher or further back than where the ink cartridge seats. So if you wanted to try to eyedropper this sucker, you're going to end up with ink everywhere. It's going to pour right out those holes. But you know, kind of a neat roller ball, and I looked it up online to see how much they're going for. So I found them on Amazon, and I'll be honest with you, for what it is, if it's indeed only the roller ball and not the combination between fountain pen and roller ball, they're probably priced a little high for what you get with it. But actually writes halfway decent. So this is like the third roller ball now that I have ever owned. Also, thrown into the care package was this from Noodlers. It is a Noodlers Ahab. And I actually had a Noodlers Ahab, and it was actually a fairly pretty one. Noodlers has their pens manufactured for them in India. And you can often tell a Noodlers pen, just like you can for Fountain Pen Revolution and a lot of pens that are made in India, simply by the smell. So you just... Yep, it's kind of has that typical smell that you get from India. And, you know, as soon as I saw this big old clip, I was like, yeah, that looks like a Noodler's Ahab. So I went and I looked it up on the Noodler's website. I think it's noodlersinc.com. Looked down their list, and this is called Emerald. So it is an Ahab, and it is called simply Emerald, and it has a number affixed to it for the model to get it in this clear color. So obviously a demonstrator, and it did come with a built-in cartridge, well, not cartridge, but converter. So you've got your section here, and you've got that right there. This is a built-in converter. It is a piston. Normally this would seat all the way down. You put that in ink, and you just pull back and you draw out ink. And one of the things I found with this, with Noodler's Ahabs, what they tend to like is you want to push that plunger back in to prime that feed some, because just sucking it up, you're not going to have a good amount of ink here in the feed, enough with which to write properly. Typically, Noodlers tends to have some flexible steel nibs in it. We'll write with it here in just a little bit. So we'll show you what that is like. Another neat pen that came to me was another pen from India. This particular pen here is something that I had actually been looking at. I know Fountain Pen Revolution carries these. This is the Airmail brand, and this is an ebonite. I actually like ebonite pens. I like ebonite swirl pens. And this actually is a very nice brown. Brown, not my favorite color, but it is one of the better looking ebonites that they had. And I had been actually eyeballing this very pen at one point in time. And my buddy Larry went ahead and sent me one of these. So it is an eyedropper filler. So basically what you would do is you would unscrew this section from the barrel, and there is no mechanism with which to fill other than pouring ink into it from an ink sample bottle, using a pipette, or using a syringe or an eyedropper of some form, putting ink into the barrel. And I've already done that, so I'm not going to demonstrate it for you. It's got a kind of a short nib to it, is one of the things that I noticed. If you see there, you see that that nib is actually looks to be a little short and a little stubby. And it writes, it's a very rigid nib as well. And so I inked that up with a brown ink to go with it. And last, certainly not least, is this particular pen. And I'm going to reach around here behind me, and I'm going to get the box that it came in. Because also from India, Pens in Fashion brought to you in India by Flair Pens. But Pierre Cardin, Paris, well, it is the President model, exclusive fountain pen. So this particular pen is made for the fashion designer Pierre Cardin, and a fairly recognizable name when it comes to clothing and fashion, and maybe even, as I recall, I thought they also made some colognes and that sort of thing. But it came in this box, and this box had a nice little plastic presentation box with the Pierre Cardin logo on it. And you open it up, and here's what you have. It actually has 4 ink cartridges that come with it. It came with an ink converter, which was a slide converter, and with the Pierre Cardin name on it. And the slide converters are obviously, to me, are something that I'm finding constantly. This came in, sitting here, are very typical. What I've been finding more and more of pens made in India to have that slide kind of converter. It is a slip cap. It is gold toned or gold accent on a black lacquered metal. So think of like not a precious resin like you would have with Mont Blanc, which essentially, when you hear resin, say plastic. But Jinhao does basically rip-offs of Mont Blanc, and they use a metal, which is exactly what this is here. This is a metal pen. But, it still looks halfway decent. It still looks presentable. It looks like something you could take into a business meeting. It looks like something that the gold tone on black to me has always been very simple yet elegant. It does have the Pierre Cardin logo right there on the clip, which is basically a signature. And there's nothing special on this cap band at all. It is a slip cap, and you pull it out and you've got a black lacquered tapered section right here. This is just a rounded end. It's not a blind cap. Nothing comes off on the end like that. And it does have an IPG, an Iridium Point Germany nib on it. And when you see one of those, you don't. It's kind of a crapshoot sometimes. It could be good. It might not be. I'll post a link to some articles on IPG nibs. I've done it a good many times here on this particular channel. But it's I've been using this as my pen of the day today, which is why it wasn't sitting out here in front of me. But it is always my pen of the day was on my desk today. So I will show you how these pens tend to write and give you a little more insights on them here in just a moment. All right, let's get to playing with these a little bit, and wanted to share with you the difference between how the Boy Scouts did it, or the Cub Scouts, and the Girl Scouts. And you can tell the difference between these two pens and how they look. Not that they're one and the same organization. They're definitely not. But just for comparison sake, wanted to share that with you, how they look. This is not inked up at all. It has been cleaned and has been sitting in my drawer for a while as a kind of a collector's item for me. And this particular pen right here, I'm going to give you fair warning on this one. It's not going to write. And the reason why it's not going to write is I did an ink, I tried to ink it up earlier, and it actually seemed to have taken in some ink. And I was actually able to write with it for a little while. So I set it down for just a little bit, and now it won't write whatsoever. So I'm going to assume that the sack, even though it's pliable, it is definitely old. When I look at it, I could tell that it was aged. This wasn't the best writing pen, but it was able to actually write. So I'm assuming that the ink reservoir is not able to suck and retain ink. So I may have gotten some into, I'm assuming like a dip test is what it turned out to be, that it's not really taking in, doesn't have the suction that I need it to have in order to pull in and retain ink. So I guess I'm going to end up changing out that ink sac on this particular pen. I do know too that I just tried expressing it to see if I could get any ink out, if it needed priming or anything, and nope, wasn't able to actually squeeze any out at all. So this thing is dry right now, essentially dry. So you know, this beat up old Girl Scout pen here, I'm going to have to do a little bit of work on it. Maybe I can change out that sack and get it to work correctly. Alright, next let's show you the Platinum Prefounte. I hope that's how it's pronounced, because that's how I'm calling it. So, you've got the medium, you've got the fine. Let's go start with the fine nib first. I just simply use a supplied ink cartridge. As a matter of fact, since these are fairly translucent, you can see that it is an ink cartridge pen. So you're going to find that this is somewhere between the Plaisir and the Preppy. Very similar barrel, very similar nib style. Essentially they just made it a cheaper plastic barrel instead of a metal barrel with the Plaisir. But you know what? For 10 bucks, it's actually a pretty good value. So let's show you the Platinum Prefounte. This is the fine nib. You know, it's not bad. Overall, it's not bad. It's going to be reliable for you. So let's compare that to the one I've already shown you in another video. Let's go with this with the medium nib. And obviously a different color ink, but look at the difference between the two. This is a much wider nib, and quite honestly, a much smoother nib as well. Personally, I do prefer the medium nib, but it was good to actually get to be able to show you the difference between the fine and the medium. Next, let's go ahead and try out this Super5 Roller Ball. And I don't know how well you can see that Super5 logo right there. It may actually go easier for you to see when it's not on the pen. There, right there. Super5 is that brand. Like I said, it's a German manufactured pen. And this is a roller ball. So this is going to be a very different writing experience here. So this is the Super5 the roller ball. The big difference between a fountain pen and a roller ball, obviously, is you have a nib compared to here you've got a ball. Now, even splitting hairs though, the difference between a roller ball and a ball point. Each of these has a ball in it that rolls around, but on a roller ball it is essentially similar to fountain pen ink. It's a liquid ink. And it will get used up sooner, but the lines are going to be a lot broader usually. The lines are going to be a little more wet. They're going to be a lot more pronounced. So a little more bold than you're going to find on a ballpoint, because inside a ballpoint pen is a very fast drying paste rather than a liquid ink. These are just standard international ink cartridges that you would throw into an ordinary everyday fountain pen. And that's what this takes for the Super5 Roller Ball. You know, I actually like this. I like this particular roller ball. I like the way it works. It's very smooth writing. This actually writes better than some of the more expensive roller balls that I have in my collection. Yeah, I've only got, I say some of, I only got like 3 of them. This actually writes a lot more smoothly than my Waterman Carène roller ball. It also writes better than the Parker Vector, although the price range on this is above the Parker Vector and far below the Waterman Carène. So in the $25 range or so. Alright, so let's go and move on to the Noodler's Ahab. I actually did a video. People used to complain about Visconti when they were having their quality control issues, that they cost like a Mont Blanc and they write like a Noodler's Ahab. So this is a Noodler's Ahab. This is the emerald. And this particular nib, I haven't really pulled out anything to see how broad, fine, medium, whatever on that nib, but it's definitely writing like a medium nib, and you can see it's got a good amount of flex to it. And that's one of the things about the Ahab that if you like. I will tell you, this seems to write better than the other Ahab that we've got, the one that I gave my wife. This particular one is smoother. Oh, look. Am I running out of ink already? Look at that. So, that was interesting. I don't know if what the deal is, why it's dry now, but it is. I'll have to work on that. But I can tell you, it wrote nicer, smoother than the other one I've got. Alright, let's go with the ebonite. The ebonite eyedropper. I've got a bunch of eyedroppers now in my collection. Some of them vintage, some of them not. Just recently I got a really nice, humongous, very expensive eyedropper pen. And I got another, also a Waterman 20 in my collection. I also got a Waterman 12, actually 3 Waterman 12s that are all eyedroppers, so vintage. And plus I got another no-name eyedropper here just within the past couple weeks that I shared on this channel. But this particular pen right here, this is an Airmail. It is from India. And I put in the SBRE brown ink into it. It writes like a fine, and it may even be on the nib itself. And I thought I documented that in my spreadsheet as to what it was. But this is a very rigid nib. You're not going to expect any kind of line variation out of it. Gotta be honest with you, when I first started writing with this pen though, it burped on me an awful lot. I'd be writing and then suddenly boop. Then again, my Waterman 20 has been doing that too. So it does lay down a decent amount of ink, yeah, even for a fine, enough to smear, but it's not bad. I mean, it's not the smoothest thing. I could probably even get it a little smoother. But it has been fairly reliable because I've been playing with it. I got it this weekend, a couple of days ago, and I've been playing with it on and off. And just the shape of the nib just is kind of interesting. It's kind of like short and stubby, it looks to be. So that's another new toy. Now, this one here, the Pierre Cardin, the designer Pierre Cardin. Pull it off. It's all metal, and it's even got, the Pierre Cardin converter. It's got that slide converter. And this also was from India, and quite honestly, it was in the same package as this pen was when they came together. And it was, I don't think Larry even opened up that package. I think he just, dished it off to me, and it had both of these pens together in that package. So, here we are, the Pierre, my father's middle name, Pierre Cardin. This is their President model. And, you know, not bad. Not bad at all. I put diamine blue velvet in this one. Blue velvet. Which is a little different. I had blue velvet ink all over my fingers today because, you know, I was playing with it. But that has been my pen of the day. Been using that today. And like I said, it's got an IPG, Iridium Point Germany nib on it, which are not really made in Germany. But those are hit or miss. This one's not bad. I've had some IPG nibs that have absolutely been horrible. But this one's not bad. I've run across a few others that were not bad. So lately I've been getting a few better IPG nibs. But there we go. Here is my pen mail for the past couple of days. Obviously, you know, I showed you these two. They were not included in my pen mail, but I had those as examples. But here we go. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pens all added to my collection since Saturday, Sunday, today's Monday night as I'm recording. So in the 3 days, I picked up these 6. Thanks to my friend Larry for your generous gift. I appreciate it, buddy. And hopefully we'll see you again sometime soon, Larry. And you know, we keep in touch. It's a good thing. And folks, we keep in touch here on my channel too. I do still have a giveaway that is going on until this Friday. So by the time this is published, you'll still have several days in order to get in on the giveaway, where I am giving away a Diplomat Magnum fountain pen and notepad. Look for that video here on this channel. And guys, that's about it. I got some other videos in the hopper that I've been thinking on and working on, so I'll show you those when I get the opportunity. Got some more pens coming, some vintage Waterman coming, some pens I know that I'm going to have to restore in order to get them back to working order. But you know, that's kind of why I bought them and at a really good price. And I enjoy the mix of contemporary pens and vintage. You know, here's a vintage one that I'm going to get going, but these are all contemporary pens, and I enjoy that. I love having a good vintage, and I love some of the newer pens too. That's what's, you know, a little different about my channel compared to a bunch of others that are out there. So anyway, thank you for watching. You guys are awesome. You've given me a whole lot of questions and answers on my channel, and I've got a bunch of questions, and I've got a whole stack of them here to answer for you in an upcoming video. Love you all. Thanks. Bye.